Hello everyone, and welcome to Boss Rush. This time I'll be picking up where I left off with the Battle Network series and jumping into Megaman Battle Network 2. It's a huge improvement over the first game, fixing just about every issue the first game had. So, let's jump in to Megaman Battle Network 2. Like the last game, I'll start off with some grinding. They nerfed a lot of chips in this game, such as the shockwaves, which now only do 40 damage instead of 60. You still want to get some of them though, as well as you want to grind some money to get an HP memory. They made all the power-up items a lot more expensive, and grinding for money is harder than it was last game, so grinding for more than 1 HP memory is likely to last you an hour or more, and 1 should suffice for now. The Battle Network Collection, which is how I am playing this, has added a Buster Max mode, which superpowers your Mega Buster. This makes grinding for chips pretty easy, and I highly recommend keeping it on for random encounters. However, it can make grinding for money harder as you're more likely to get chips with higher busting levels. Our first boss of the game is Airman, and he's a bit tougher than you'd expect due to the lack of chips available and no power-ups. The best course of action is to use the shockwave chips or any type of ranged chip to hit him while he launches the hurricane attack. The twisters can absorb an attack when hit, so avoid anything that can't go through them or over them. Mini bombs or the bombs dropped by the red beetle enemies in Airman's stage are good picks. You can also try and react to his cannon attack, but you might end up getting hit or waiting too long and missing. You could also simply try to hit him while he's moving around with some sword chips. Unfortunately, wide swords, which are the most effective at this, aren't in great supply early, so you got to stick with the regular swords. Our first optional boss of the game is the same as it was with the last game, Gutsman. As with the first game, Gutsman is fairly easy. Once he cracks the panels on your side, simply break the one in the front row and stand behind it. Now he can't damage you. Anything with range is your friend this fight. Cannons, bombs, or anything targeted. Basically anything that doesn't require the panel in front of you to be there is useful. You can do this easily without getting hit, as long as you aren't an idiot and walk into his attack. Another optional boss that opens up with this chapter is Toadman. Toadman can be a bit tricky. Not only do you have this constant stream of tadpoles coming for you, but he also moves the second you get into the same lane as him. And on top of that, his attacks paralyze you. The trick is to time your attacks for after he jumps. You can't do it before because you'll miss. Trigger his lane switch by getting in front of him, then follow him and immediately launch your attack. This should give you enough time to hit before he jumps again. He also leaves an opening when he's attacking, but considering this attack stuns you and leaves you open to other attacks, that is too often more risk than reward. So I just want to take a second to talk about how much the Quickman stage sucks. You see how the floor explodes there? That's going to happen all the time. There is only one correct path, and there's no way of knowing what it is unless you've memorized it. So be ready to constantly walk down a path, have it explode on you, go to the next one, have it explode on you, and so on until you finish the level. Our next boss in the game is Quickman, and honestly, he is easier than he looks. Well, his first version is, anyway. He only has 2 attacks. He throws a boomerang at you, or he'll throw 2 boomerangs at you. Easy to avoid and easy to anticipate. Only problem is that he can't be damaged unless he's moving or attacking. Shockwaves are useful here as he tends to get in the path of them while he's darting around. You can also just try shooting blind while he's moving and hope you get lucky. It works about 50% of the time. You could try to get him while he's attacking, but chances are you'll get hit as well. He doesn't do a terrible amount of damage, and you should have 200 plus HP now, but still. The next optional boss is Gateman, the first of Mr. Famous's many navies he'll have throughout the series. Gateman isn't that hard, honestly. He moves slowly, so you have plenty of opportunities to deal damage. He'll summon these little penguin soldiers, which can be tricky to dodge, except they're easily killed with the Mega Buster. The only thing you have to watch out for is the gate he summons late in the fight. This thing blocks any attacks that hit it, and it can launch at you at lightning speed, and you can't really tell when it's about to attack. The best strategy I found for him was to wait in the front row and hit him with my wide swords. The next boss is Cutman, and Cutman is ridiculously easy. He moves slow and his attacks are both easy to predict and easy to avoid. I only got hit twice, and both times it was because I got greedy. He likes to be in the front row a lot, so swords are your friend here. There's nothing else to say about this boss other than that. Moving on. Okay, well actually his V2 form is a bit harder because he spawns a second pair of scissors, and that can leave you trapped. However, if you hang in the front row when available, he's less likely to do his blade throwing attack, which is what can be problematic to you. So this game introduced style changes. These add an element to Mega Man's charged attack, as well as an element to Mega Man himself. The style you get is determined by how you're playing. I got shield style, which gives me a shield if I hit circle and back, probably because I've been using my buster so much. The element you get, however, is completely random, and these elements, as it should be obvious, do give you both an elemental advantage and an elemental disadvantage. The next boss on the list is Shadow Man, and honestly, Shadow Man can be tricky for people, but he's not that hard if you're paying attention. His shuriken attack can be easily dodged, as can his explosive attack. You gotta be careful with that though, because it is a fire element attack and you start the game with brass panels. The only real trouble you'll face for most of the fight is when he spawns his clones. You want to kill them as soon as possible or they'll launch a near unavoidable attack. Near the end of the fight, he'll spawn these 2 blue clones on your side of the field. These guys are actually a significant threat. They take 100 damage to kill, and they're only damaged by certain attacks. So either kill them immediately with a sword, or learn to play around them. Here's a little bit of advice. The next chapter takes you to a different map, and you can't leave until the chapter is over. And you'll have all your chips in your pack robbed almost immediately. So go challenge Mr. Famous again, and get the second folder. Then put all the chips you have for special occasions, and put them in that folder so they don't get stolen. I know, it's fucking stupid. The first of many bosses in this chapter is Thunderman. Thunderman himself isn't a big threat, you just have to learn to play around these clouds. If you stand next to one too long, they'll hit you, so you gotta keep moving. Thankfully, Thunderman really doesn't do anything, so that's not that hard. Wood chips are your best defense here. If you grinded the flower viruses in the Shadow Man stage, you should have a good amount of the tree bomb chips to make this fight easy. And almost immediately afterwards, you have to fight Snake Man. Snake Man is a pain in the ass. When you're in the same lane as him, he'll hide like a little bit. He'll hide in his pot and stay there until you move out of his lane. So you have to time your attacks well to actually deal damage to him. Throwing the tree bombs at him is an effective strategy, as is any ranged chip or fire chip that you can throw his way. However, the middle row of panels on his side is empty, so nothing that requires those panels will affect him. And he's perpetually spawning these little snakes that fly at you. They're not that big of a deal, but they can shield him from your attacks if you're not careful enough. The next boss up is Proto Man. And Proto Man is actually pretty hard, especially by this game's standards. He does a lot of damage, and his attacks trigger almost instantly. Not to mention that for a lot of his attacks, he teleports right in front of you. So being reactive is key. You have to lure him within range and strike. He'll also react to you using a chip by attacking, so anything that frame locks you or requires him to stay still for half a second is out. Swords are the most effective, as you can lure him into range and deal significant damage with each hit. But the tree bombs, if used strategically, and the little clouds are also quite useful. And now we finally get to the actual boss of this chapter. Nightman is very easy, especially compared to the last few bosses. He stays static in the back row and only has 2 basic attacks. He'll either launch his wrecking ball at you, or he'll launch it at the ceiling and cause 3 sets of rocks to fail. He'll only do the former when you're in the same lane as him, so it's easy to control what attack he uses. Later in the fight, he will swing his flail at you, but I never ran into that attack because I beat him before he used it. The only real struggle here is that he'll take only 1 damage from all attacks when he's in his stone shell, and he only comes out of it when he's attacking. But it's easy to get into a rhythm of waiting for him to attack, hitting him, and then ducking. The next boss is Magnet Man, and Magnet Man can be a pain in the ass if you don't come prepared. This battle will always start with a line of magnet panels in the middle lane. These panels pull you towards them, meaning it makes it very hard to effectively dodge when every time you move, you're being pulled back to the middle lane. The best way around this is to set any chips that replace or remove these kind of panels, like Repair, for example, as your auto chip, and maybe have a second one just in case. Once you've gotten rid of the first lane of mag panels, Magnet Man will immediately create a second line of mag panels on the top lane, but that's much easier to manage. Magnet Man's attacks are, for the most part, pretty easy to avoid. Later in the match, he'll spawn a clone of himself and football tackle you. This attack, though, is pretty easy to manage, as he won't use it as long as you're in the back row. The one attack that is somewhat problematic is this electric energy ball attack. This thing follows you right up until the last second, so you have to get your timing down on avoiding it. For this fight, wood element chips and chips that affect more than one spot are your friend. Chips like Satellite, Quake, Lil Cloud, Navi chips, and Tree Bomb will help this fight go by quickly. So before we get to the last few bosses of the game, I have to talk about what has got to be some of the most egregious padding I've ever seen in a game. Let me set the stage for you. These ice crystals have formed all over the net, and I need to find a way to break them. That seems simple, right? Here's what you need to do. First, you need to talk to this red Navi. Nothing tells you need to talk to them. As far as you're concerned, they're just background dialogue. At no point in this game have you ever had to listen to random NPC dialogue except for right now. Then you have to go find their friend in Kotobuki. Their friend gives you a red ice shard, which can be used to break the red ice. Okay, cool. 2 types of ice down. Next, we need to find out how to break the yellow ice. How do we do that? Well, you gotta go to the square and read the posts on the info board. Again, it doesn't tell you that you need to do this. Now, I know I need to find this dock guy to get the item that breaks the yellow ice. But I need a keyword that'll summon him. So now I need to go to Undernet.ee, talk to this guy, pay him 10,000 zenny for him to tell me the guy who knows the keyword is in Net Square. So I go to Net Square, but he's not there. This guy tells me he's nearby buying a chip. So I find him, and he's not going to give me the word for free. He wants a particular chip, a chip that I did not have. So I had to spend around 30 minutes grinding these blue bunnies until I got the specific chip he wanted so he can give me the code. Now I have to go back to Undernet.ee, put the code on the board, and talk to this guy. He tells me I need to find some heat data and only gives me a vague description of where it could be. Now I have to go into Akuden, jack into the grill, talk to this program, go find the other program he's talking about in Yumland 2, go back to the grill and talk to the same program again to get the heat data, then go back to Undernet 2 to get the thing that breaks the yellow ice. But we are not done yet. Next, I have to go to Netopia 2 and break the yellow ice to free this Navi. He wants me to find his brother, who's in Undernet 3. So I go there, talk to his brother, and then return to Netopia 2 to tell his brother that he's okay. Now, I need to get 3 items to make the last ice-breaking item, one of which was given to me by that guy. To get the second one, I have to go back to Undernet 3, the game doesn't tell you this by the way, to see this guy walking on the lower level. Then I have to talk to this guy who tells me the guy's brother, who makes keys, is back in Netopia Square. So I have to go back to Netopia Square, find the guy, and finally get the key to go to the lower area, beat this Navi, and then I can finally face the boss and get the final piece. That was 15 minutes of gameplay, padded out into an hour. I'd recommend going to Netopia and using the jack-in ports there, as they are closer to where you need to go most of the time, and having the gate key for Netopia Square can also help as well. You get that gate key, by the way, by going to the Net Castle and talking to one of the scientists in that main room and do the quiz thing, and then he'll give you the key. But none of that excuses what is a very unnecessarily long and frustrating and unfun part of this game. Oh, and I still got a boss to deal with. Thankfully, the boss of this chapter, Freezeman, isn't that hard. He stays static in the back row, and while the ice panels that are covering the field should make it harder to dodge with precision, the board is set up in such a way that you can effortlessly avoid his attacks by simply moving back and forth. Freezeman will stay in his ice shell for a bit and can't be damaged, which definitely makes the fight longer than it should be, but with the chips you should have by now, draining his HP shouldn't be too hard. Alright. One more optional boss before I get to the end game. Heatman is pretty easy. He has just a few basic attacks, with 2 variations of his fire towers, both easy to avoid, and his ground pound is also easy to avoid. The only annoying thing is these lava panels he leaves behind. These damage you when you step on them, unless you RNG to fire element style like me, in which case you're immune. He's pretty easy to hit with most chips, so a decently crafted folder should take him down quickly, even more so if you have a good number of water element chips. Okay, so before we get to the final 2 bosses, I have to talk about how dumb the plot gets in this final chapter. For this final section, we have to go to this town where Gospel is headquartered. Well, this town is emitting high amounts of electromagnetic radiation, specifically 10,000 times the normal levels. It will be later revealed that it's actually 30,000 times the normal levels, and it will hit 100,000 times normal levels at one point. That sounds insane, and it is. Now, I'm not going to pretend to be an expert on this. I did some cursory research on electromagnetic radiation. I really couldn't get a definitive answer on what normal background levels are, and I also don't know what this game is defining as normal background levels. What I could understand, or at least I think I understood, is that there are multiple types of electromagnetic radiation. The radiation they're talking about in this game is not necessarily nuclear, at least I don't think it's nuclear radiation, because nuclear radiation is a form of electromagnetic radiation that is the result of nuclear fusion or fission or whatever. And also, there are different types of electromagnetic fields, and it doesn't specify what type of electromagnetic field we're dealing with here either. So, with my knowledge, there's no real way for me to determine just how dangerous this is. But suffice to say, the idea that this amount of electromagnetic radiation is being emitted from one apartment building is categorically insane. For the final boss, you'll be facing two bosses back to back. The boss before the final boss is Base, and he'll show up multiple times in the series. This version of him is insanely easy. He has two attacks, a single projectile attack and a scattershot variation. The scattershot is hard to dodge, but can be prevented by hitting him in his windup. Most chips are good for this fight as it gives you plenty of opportunities to deal damage. Just focus on keeping yourself alive and you should be done with him in no time. And now for the actual final boss of the game, Gospel. Gospel is more a fight of patience than anything else. When his mouth is closed, he can't be damaged, and he only opens it to attack. His attacks are quick and do a lot of damage. By now, you should have bought every HP memory and power-up you can find, so you should be able to survive a couple hits. He'll also spawn these flying hunks of garbage. They take 50 damage to destroy, so it's better to just focus on avoiding them. The best chips for this fight are ranged chips and chips you can quickly fire and move out of the way. With the small opportunities to do damage, any extra time could result in getting hit or losing your chance to deal damage. So chips where you can duck immediately after using them are valuable. Around the 3/4 mark of the fight, he'll start spawning navis you fought throughout the game to attack. These guys can be annoying, but they're also another shot to deal damage. At the end of the fight, he'll start hitting you with a Dragon Breath attack. This thing can easily kill you, so be careful. He'll use a Vacuum Breath to bring you in, so hold back on the D-pad to keep yourself at a safe distance. This fight is all about being patient and taking advantage of your opportunities as they're presented to you. If you do that, you should be able to beat this guy in 1 or 2 tries. And that's it. That was Megaman Battle Network 2. I consider this to be my favorite in the series, but playing it now, it's a game with numerous plot holes and the back half is padded to hell and back. So perhaps I was looking at it through rose-tinted glasses. Anyways, that's it for the video. If you feel so inclined to do the algorithm engaging stuff like liking and commenting, please do. If you want to subscribe, please go ahead. If you want to see my videos the nanosecond they drop, go ahead and put the bell on. Won't blame me if you don't, though. And now the video has ended.